nightmare about this stuff feeling though.
And a guy at the library seemed to think that this Marion Stigman would really be able to help us out.
Oh, really? Well, I've sort of heard that she's an expert on genetic modification.
You know, I hope she can help clear up some of these questions we have. There's so much information.
I'm sure she will.
So where are we going? Where is the future of GM crops in the United States? This will include energy crops, such as the ones we're producing in the lab, such as crops that they are at surplus level in the United States, such as corn, and using those crops for producing energy, ethanol, or for producing biodegradable plastic or industrial enzymes. Also, high-value crops that can be used to improve our environment. I mentioned ethanol to substitute for petroleum-based fuel, and I mentioned biodegradable plastic. This would be important. And I must say that most of these crops not only would become environmentally safe and safe to human health, but also would improve the economy of the United States.
The future sounds bright, but who stands to gain from all this?
Why are we doing that? Except that it is profitable for these three major companies in the world, which are really all working together so that we're really talking about a world in which one worldwide conglomerate can eventually control what everyone eats. And that's just a very bad idea.
So we're trying to use genetics to solutions to problems that aren't really
biological problems. That's right.
So we're using it for everything just because we can.
And because it can make money.
What are the pros and cons to advances in pharmaceuticals involving genetically modified organisms?
High-value pharmaceutical crops would be produced. Crops that they carry vaccines. After they would modify the structure of the protein of insulin, for example, that it doesn't have to be injected, could be orally taken for type 1 diabetes. That could be produced in plants. One could eat celery and get insulin at the same time. A kid 5 years old should not get injected by insulin syringe 4 times per day. And that would be very nice if the kid could put a couple of pieces of carrots and a banana in his lunchbox and take it to school. That has supplied insulin, for example.
And as far as feeding people, you know, the yellow rice and all that kind of thing, or golden rice as they call it, people develop nutritional deficiencies because they're poor, because they don't have enough to eat, because they're infested with parasites. And genetically modifying food, which is going to have to be bought on the market and be more expensive than unmodified food, is not going to solve nutritional problems. World hunger is an economic problem. It's not a biological problem.
So what are the dangers of genetically modified crops?
Well, the inherent danger is hard to predict. I mean, there is an inherent danger because you don't know exactly what you're doing, because genes are not just another reagent. But it's mostly the sort of uncertainty and unpredictability that's the problem.
Well, if we're going to go ahead with this genetic modification of food, shouldn't we label it?
Biotech companies, of course, are not interested in labeling. Why? Because they cannot sell, because it's going to be expensive. Label can be accurate, but it could be misleading.
Yes, labeling is a big issue. And of course, why do they refuse to label? Because they're afraid people aren't going to buy it if it's labeled. Well, if they're afraid people aren't going to buy it if it's labeled, then why are they making it?
If consumers are trusting scientists and the government, labeling is not necessary for most genetically modified products.
If labeling is a potential problem, what about other social issues?
What you need to do is deal with the social causes of the problem. Yeah, but keep it alive for what? For when this finally blows up in our faces?
Well,
I mean,
just
why
just
are
in
we
case,
doing
right?
it? I mean, there is this very real risk that we are all aware of, that by concentrating it so much, by reducing diversity so much, we're going to be up against it. You know, the worldwide analog of the potato famine.
So now that we've talked to the experts, let's see what one local farmer has to say.
We were wondering if there's any, do you have any feelings on genetically modified crops? Do you feel they're bad or good for environment's sake and for the future of farming?
I think there should be more research.
Earlier you mentioned that you don't actually use the genetically modified crops, but do you feel like in the future you're going to have to compete?
We're going to stay away from it as long as possible. So long as we can produce a good product at a reasonable price, I'll never use it. I'm going to say, except for that, I mean, if we have big problems on there where we can't raise things, everybody's going to have to change to it.
You know, I've learned so much about GM crops in the last week, but I still don't know where I stand.
After talking to all the experts, we've realized that we can biologically do all of this, but it doesn't really necessarily mean that we should. So what about all the social implications too? All the possibilities and questions that are still there?
It doesn't seem right that people make up a decision on a 30-second news interview when, I mean, we've done all this research.
I know what you mean. We spent so much time doing all this, and we still have so many unanswered questions. So where do you stand?
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my own